Namaskar. Thank you for attending this little mini session on do startups need brand thinking? So let's plunge into today's presentation straight away. Like you have KYC for banks and other important uh, meetings, the government of India says that on Zoom you should have KYS, which means know your speaker. So here's a little bit about the speaker from 1983 with hair to today with no hair. That's the journey of the speaker. The point being made here is I'm a brand practitioner, not an academician. Since I have been in advertising from 1983 and in branding from 1999. So since 1999, I have been involved in over 275 brands, creating over 50 new ones. We have 4 IPs, including an innovation lab. I'm an invited member of the Marketing Society of UK India chapter and a TED and a TEDx speaker. There are other dimensions of my brand. I'm a writer. I've published 3 books of fiction. You have to trust that yellow circle represents me, rock climbing and trekking. I share my expertise pro bono through 4 different uh, NGOs, and I practice Vipassana for conscious evolution. So that's about me. Let's start with what is a brand in the first place, because there is a hell of a lot of confusion about what a brand is. The word brand we know. The word brand means to burn. Branding came from the idea of burning cattle to claim ownership. But what does brand mean? Burning is the meaning of the word, but what is the meaning of creating a brand? So let's undertake the great chlorophyll brand quiz. How long do you think a human being can live without food? 5 days, 7 days, 1 month. And these are the examples that I'm giving you are all from the Guinness Book of World Records, because there is a lot of mythology about some people who have lived without food for years on end. So the world record is 74 days. This is a gentleman from the Irish Republican Army who survived without food for 74 days. How long can a human being live without water? Take a guess, 3 days, 5 days. The world record is 18 days. This gentleman was arrested by the police, and the police forgot that he was put into a cell and he survived there for 18 days without water. How long can a human being live without breathing? If you do pranayam, you will say 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The world record is an astonishing 22 minutes by this gentleman called Tom Cetus. And finally, you know where I'm going with this. So finally, how long can a human being live without thinking? I know some of you witty ones will say, oh, I have a friend who hasn't been thinking for a very long time. But not, jokes apart, the fact is that we cannot survive without thinking even in our sleep. So the point being made is human beings, you and I, survive without tangibles much longer than we can without intangibles. And that's why our lives are driven by ideas that are intangible. So trust between a parent and a child, nationality, you know what's happening between India and China. But if you go on the border, there is actually nothing there, right? It's only on the map. So nationality is also an idea. Love, we know what this means to all of us. But we have been taught to believe that intangibles and ideas matter only in personal life and not in business. That is no longer true. Digital technology has transformed the intangible into tangible influences that can be measured and monitored. So there is a very famous organization called Ocean Tomo, which tracks tangible assets and intangible assets and their contribution to market cap. This is in the US, but this will be true of any other country also. Between 1975 and 2020, you can see a total reversal of the contribution of intangible assets. In 1975, it was only 17, and now it is 90. So firms that have tremendous market cap are firms that have a lot of intangible, ideational, intellectual property claims. If you look at Apple, which has one of the highest brand values in the world, I'm not talking about revenue, I'm talking about brand value. It's 200 billion. That's because they have 75,000 patents. So very simply put, let's define the brand as an intangible idea. It's an idea that guides the way we run the organization, that guides the way we do business. So what's a startup? We've got this done, what a brand is. What's a startup? The most elegant definition I found, and the most relevant definition I found, was from a place called Felori.com. They say that startups have two characteristics. One is growth. The startup has a potential to grow exponentially rather than linearly. It is scalable. And the second is innovation. A startup is testing assumptions that haven't been tested before, sufficiently new technologies, products and services, or markets. I find these two definitions very handy. So by this definition, chlorophyll is not a startup when it started even in 1999, because it's not scalable like the way a startup is. What's not a startup? If it's not scalable and it's not innovative, it's not a startup. It's just a new business. You just opened a stall to do something which everybody else was doing. What about the startup ecosystem in India? The good news is that we are very high up in the ladder. So apparently India has the third largest ecosystem in the world. We have 21 unicorns. Unicorns are startups that have been valued for more than $1 billion. And the latest unicorn as early as September 2nd was Unacademy. So Unacademy became the latest 22nd unicorn in India. The other good news is that the entrepreneurs in India, like in South Africa and Guatemala, their motivations are to make a difference in the world. Their motivation is not just to earn money or to make profits, which is another good news as far as startups are concerned. But there is a big but here. A startup in essence is a business experiment. This means that real startups are prone to failure by definition. They're testing assumptions, and it's very likely that these assumptions are wrong. It's no surprise that most startups fail, because you take the traditional risk of starting a business and you take the idea of a business experiment. Therefore, most startups would fail. Guess the number of startups that succeed worldwide, not just in India. Think about it. The failure rate is 9 out of 10. It's an astonishing failure rate, and we'll soon study, is there something that we can do to bring this failure rate down? What is the biggest reason for failure? Let's look at the reasons for failure. So if you look at the 7 that have been listed here, look at the right-hand side. 34% lack of product market fit, 22% marketing problems, and 18% team problems. So there are 2 problems which are external. The biggest percentage is what I'm taking. I'm leaving out finance problems because it is lower than the top 3. So there are 2 which are external and 1 which is internal. 56% is due to poor understanding of consumer, their needs, and addressing those needs. So these are external problems, and 18% is due to internal culture. Is there a way for us to address this external and internal problems? So that is what I'm saying. So we have defined what a brand is. We have defined what a startup is. We have looked at the reasons why 9 out of 10 startups fail. So brand thinking can de-risk this 74%. Let's look at how. First, why do we need brands? Because when the brand is defined well, it allows the brand to enter multiple businesses with lower investments. Think about a brand like Fab India. It says, I'm anti-capitalism, I'm for handmade products. From one product in the 1960s, they have gone to close to 12,000 products. So the brand is a well-defined brand, is one that is not tied down to a category. I don't know if you know, but Dunkin' Donuts, because it was called Dunkin' Donuts, it couldn't sell anything more. Very recently, they have taken the name Donuts out of the brand name. That's what we mean. A brand not tied down to a category, but anchored in a mindset. So this is the starting point. There are 2 or 3 starting points about brand thinking. So brand thinking begins by understanding the mindset common to multiple segments that your brand can connect to. We call it social context. What's the social context? Let me just give you an example, rather 2 examples. Example 1, most of you have watched these movies, PK, Dangal, Secret Superstar. What's the big news about these movies? Besides the fact that they were super hits in India, they were super hits somewhere else. They were the highest grossing films in China, ahead even of Hollywood. Why? Why were these family ties, aspirations of the young, gender stereotypes, rigors of our education? These are common to both countries. So there is a mindset which is common to India and China, even though we might be at war on our borders. The Chinese people and the Indian people are thinking along the same lines. Look at another example, Airbnb. What is it catering to? It is catering to a mindset which is common across the world, the mindset of the millennials. Millennials are willing to spend on experiences and save for travel instead of buying a house or making other traditional investments. So Airbnb is anchored in this mindset. It's looking at a huge number of segments across the world. So a social context is a mindset that is geography agnostic, demographic agnostic, category agnostic. This allows the brand to connect to more people than just those who are using the product at that point in time. How do we arrive at a social context? What you do is you look at global or category trends, then you do research, you talk to people who are likely to use your product and looked at their filters, and you will arrive at a social context. So let me give you an example. One of the big trends worldwide is individualism. The individual is becoming more important than society, than the educational institution, even more important than the family. And what individualism means is many things. One of the things it means at an individual level is I need my inviolate spaces. Therefore, the social context is what I want is as important as what my family needs. So I'm the father, I have provided for my family. Now I wish to spend time learning the guitar. That wasn't what my father would do. My father would be working day and night just to support the family. So there is this new emerging mindset which says what I want is as important as what my family needs. Whatever the startup that you have, you will have to find out what is a mindset that is relevant to your startup. So here are examples. When I go to my father's and mother's villages and we have our traditional homes there, now when the new brides come, they say, I want my separate kitchen. I don't want to cook in a common kitchen. When I go to do research, because we do research for every single brand that we handle, we do primary research. When I go to a town like Lucknow, then the new bride says, I want my own computer. My driver and his family, every one of them has their own mobile. And very recently I attended research for a insurance company, and there the woman said, my friend has a child who's 2 years and a son who is 8 years, and she kept both of them with the parents-in-law and went to Koh Samui for our own holiday. This would be unheard of in the generation before us. So the mindset is expressed in multiple behaviors. Our job is to find out what that mindset is. So these are the 2 steps. One is secondary research to do global trends, and primary research to understand local expression. So does this cost money? So because most people say that, oh, I'm a startup, I don't have money. Of course you don't have money, but you can have time. So one of the things that that I did when we were working on Tata Motors is to travel by truck at night to understand what the truck driver goes through on a highway from Pune to Mumbai. Or when we were working on a brand, we went with the housewife to see how she buys toys. That's the toy brand. So what you need is continuously talking and understanding and finding out what the intended user has as her mindset. This prevents error one, falling in love with your own idea. 50 to 60% of the startups we deal with have some kind of technology backing them, and they are absolutely in love with their own idea without ever having talked to the people who are likely to use that technology. So if you do this thinking about the mindset, it will prevent error number one. Instead, it will build the most important quality that your offering needs, relevance. Remember, that is the key word. How relevant is my brand and my product to the end consumer? Step two in the brand thinking is, now that you've found the social context, what is the core idea? Remember, we said a brand is an intangible idea. What is that core idea that is driving my business? Let me show you a video. Most of you might have seen this. It's a very famous video, but it's very powerful and simple.
Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3.
As I was saying, look at this Fabinda example. So what they are saying, what is the idea that is driving their business is inclusive capitalism, anti-mass production. So what they now have created is a platform, the largest private platform for 55,000 Indian craftsmen for products made with traditional techniques. So from one product in 1960 to close to 12,000, there is including a cafe. So under the brand name Fab India, they are able to sell thousands of products because there is a core which is very well defined. How do we arrive at the brand core? we have our own formula. What we do is we take what is the meaning of the brand beyond the category, we take the archetype and we take the values and find out what is common to these three things. It's simple, but it's not easy. I don't think in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes we can do this. Normally, when we do these exercises, it involves research and it takes about a month and a half. But there is a way to find out what really is the brand score. Let me give you a theoretical example, meaning I have worked it out for myself or not with help of Amul. So if you look at the most famous campaign of India, which is Amul, these are, earlier they would do one new ad per month. Now they're doing 2 new ads per week. So, and they're always very topical and they have that Amul girl. So what Amul stands for is saying create prosperity for all stakeholders. It is not just for the company. It is not just for the consumers. It is also for the farmers who provide them milk. They are caregivers, and what they are doing is democratizing the market. During COVID times, Amul was one of the few brands which actually increased the money that they paid to the farmers. So that's their motto: value for money and value for many. So that's the core: value for money and value for many. Amul itself has created 3 unicorns. It's unheard of. No brand on earth has by itself created another 3 unicorns. This is what it has done. 3 other dairies that they launched have become unicorns with value worth more than 1 billion US. So this, when you do this idea, when you find out the brand core that is beyond the product category, it prevents error 2. And the error 2 is the inability to pivot. If you are called Dunkin' Donuts and people are no longer buying donuts, what will you sell? In the case of Amul, since it is talking about value for money and value for many, here's what it has done. It has launched hundred of new products during the COVID era. So they have launched Haldi Doodh, they have launched Amul Panchamrit because everybody is worried about safety. So they don't want to use Panchamrit, which is lying outside near the temple. So here is a ready-made Panchamrit. So this is step 2 of brand thinking. And once these 2 are in place, the third step is alignment. So now you know what the mindset you're dealing with. Now you know what your brand stands for. And what you need to do is now align every single activity to that brand core. So that is how it looks. Your brand name, your identity, your experience, everything gets aligned to the brand core. What's the secret sauce of alignment? Here is one of the most famous brands from US, Zappos. And this is what he says: our number 1 priority is company culture. Our whole belief is that if you get the culture right, most of the other stuff like delivering great customer service or building a long-term enduring brand will just happen naturally on its own. Do not mistake culture for environment. Having beanbags and having foosball tables and having coffee machines is not culture. Culture is values plus behavior. Culture is values and behavior. So everybody in the organization needs to know what your values are and how they translate into behavior. For instance, the first step is hiring and induction. So when remember, we looked at those 2 things, the 2 big reasons for failure. One was external, which is market mapping, meeting the market needs, and second was internal, which is the rift between people who join a startup because it's a very high pressure place. So here is the mantra that every single big company has used: hire for values and train for skills, because you cannot teach values. The person that you hire must have those values intrinsically. Here's a short video talking about hiring for values and training for skill.
Among the guests at the Taj that night were members of the Global Board of Directors and senior management team of Unilever, who had gathered along with their spouses to honor incoming and outgoing CEOs.
So we had this really elaborate 7-course meal, and that was sort of the setting, the mood. There was warmth, there was laughter, there was a perfect setting for a nostalgic farewell and a perfect setting for a nice welcome. And I heard what seemed to me, which is an untrained ear, like firecrackers in the hotel.
We started getting these text messages and phone calls. There were some gunmen on the loose. The only logical thing to do was to close the doors and just stay put.
Malika came to us and said, "We think there's a problem. We're not sure what exactly it is, but I request all of you to be on the ground right now." The level of calm and composure that the staff displayed was amazing, was absolutely amazing, because they had the presence of mind to even advise us, saying, "Couples, please separate, don't stay at the same place, just be in different corners of the room."
65 lives at stake, so can't take a chance. So obviously we were in touch with security all the time and had a lot of alcohol in the room, so that helped a little.
This went on the whole night. We were on the floor with our hearts in our mouth, with debris falling all around us, the noises of firecrackers all around, and all through the staff kept their composure, kept coming to us saying, "Do you want some water? Do you want something?"
Well, I was scared, but there was something more important to be done.
And this went on till 4 or 5 in the morning, when the room filled with smoke. So we had no choice but to find a way to escape.
The entire corridor outside the hall was on fire. There was no way we could get out. The fire guys were outside and they were dousing the fire on the 6th floor. And we happened to see Mr. Kang downstairs as well. So he sort of ushered the fire guys to us.
We sort of climbed onto the ledge and did some stuff which in today's normal day I wouldn't be able to do, but we sort of came onto the ledge, climbed down to the ladders which by then the fire brigade people had come. The staff insisted that we would go first, guests would go first. And they kept like that till all of us had come down, and then they all came down.
Well, in a way, because I was there, I was looking after the function, I was responsible. I could have been the youngest in the room, and I know at one point of time I was the youngest in the room, but I was still doing my job.
The easiest thing for our staff to do at that point in time was to drop whatever they were doing and run out of the hotel. Not one did that. Not one.
It's a beautiful video. If you ever get time, please watch it. It is a Harvard case study on the 2611. And if you ask the people at the Taj how they hire, they go to tier 2 towns. They never hire from metros, and they go for attitude rather than academics. The second aspect of creating a culture is how the leader behaves. So one is hiring and induction. Second is leadership behavior. Here's one more interesting video for you all to watch.
1979, SLV-3 satellite launch vehicle. I was the project director, mission director. My mission is to put the satellite in the orbit. Thousands of people worked nearly 10 years. I reached the Sriharikota, and it's in the launch pad. Countdown was going on. T-minus 4 minutes, T-minus 5 minutes, T-minus 1 minute, T-minus 40 seconds. Computer put a hold, don't launch it. Computer says don't launch it. I am the mission director, I have to take a decision. Everything is on. Behind me there are 6 experts. They saw data, computer database coming in and screen, and they see the pictures in the screen. They said there's a problem. The problem is there's a leakage in a system, in the control system. But immediately calculation, no problem. We have got sufficient fuel and oxidation for control system is controls the rocket to the required attitude, and we can go ahead. Now, of course, my expert's view, but I took the decision. Problem is mine. Finally, I took a decision. I bypassed the computer. I launched the system. Okay, I launched the system. This fellow went. First stage worked in a 4-stage rocket, and second stage got mad. It went to spin. Instead of putting the satellite in the orbit, it put in the Bay of Bengal. 1979, it was a failure. It was a failure. First time I experienced my failure. How do you manage the failure? Success I can manage. So at that time, a great man, a great leader, Professor Satish Dhawan, he comes to me, I'm very tired working nearly for months. He wakes me up, come, let us go for a press conference. Press is meeting there, like this, number of people, world press, with photos, this and that, all the gadgets they are there. I was really frightened, I will be the culprit. Because I'm the project director, mission director. What Satish Dhawan said, chairman, Indian Space Research Organization, said, dear friends, we have failed today. It's the first time I have to give all the success, all the failure is, I want to support my technologists and scientists and staff so that next year they succeed. So he took the whole blame himself. And then media asked, you have put Bay of Bengal so many crores, you have put it like that, lot of criticism. He received the criticism, he assured them in a year we will succeed with our team, it's a very good team. Next year, here only interesting happened, next year, July 18th, 1980, when he succeeded, Professor Dhawan said, you go and conduct the press conference. Do you follow what this means? It means when the failure occurred, the leader took it up. When the success came, he gives to his team. That's the first.
And the third aspect of creating a great culture is rewards and deterrence. So you get what you reward or tolerate. If you are heading a team and if you find somebody not living up to your values, you have to be very clear about whether you are going to tolerate it or not tolerate it. That is what will create culture in your office, in your organization. So one of the things that has happened is we have done at least 2 or 3 hospital brands. And one of the things about hospital brands is it is not clear whether the hospital is a brand or the doctors, the famous doctors who work there are a brand. We know only of one hospital which sacked a doctor overnight, one of the greatest surgeons overnight, because he didn't follow the standard operating procedures of that hospital. That is what we mean by rewards and deterrence, that if your values are clear, you have to make sure that everybody, however big or small, lives up to those values. Remember, organizations compete in 2 markets, for clients and for talented people. This was said by Dr. Sweeby, father of the knowledge economy. So to summarize today's session, avoid falling in love with your own idea, avoid the narcissist syndrome, work out the relevance of your idea and the social context of your consumers, define what your brand stands for beyond the category, not in its own category. What is its aim beyond the category? What does it want to do beyond being just a product? Then that is the external one. And internally, align the values and behavior to create your own culture so that you attract the right people. And remember, none of this costs money, it costs time. Anyway, as Jeff Bezos said, overnight success takes 10 years. So your brand is not going to be a success overnight. We keep talking about Apple, but Apple has been around since 1977. So that is the summary for what causes failure of startups all over the world and how brand thinking in those 3 steps can actually prevent this failure from happening. Thank you.